So welcome to the Sales Leverage Pip to President's Club podcast. My name is Ryan Johns, founder and CEO of SalesLeverage. We started this podcast with the intent of re-educating the market on the most optimal ways to achieve sales and revenue success. Our guests consist of revenue leaders, individual contributors across sales, marketing, business development, customer success, and even product engineering. Believe it or not, all of these teams play a critical role in the overall success of the modern revenue org. On this podcast, we address the most pressing challenges and we offer actionable solutions that simplify the complex sales process. So a little bit different format today. As you can see, I am solo, due mainly to the Thanksgiving holiday. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there, everyone that celebrates the holiday. Hope you are preparing for an enjoyable week or a few days off from work. So again, I just thought it would be a good idea to go into some of the data. I've been doing a lot of research this year, third party and direct research, even through some of the consulting work that I've been doing over the last couple of years. And I guess I want to title this the 2023 and 2024 Sales Statistics Overview. And just want to give you some unique insights and some of the hidden behavioral drivers that some of this macro research doesn't reveal. I think they did a really good job overall. And I'm not necessarily refuting any of the data, but I just want to maybe add some more color and context based on, again, our experience working with dozens of sales and revenue teams globally. So I've got some data from some of my sources are going to be Gartner. I've got some from HubSpot, a really good report, and I'll give you the links to all this stuff afterwards. And then also Sales Insights Lab. I'll see how much I can get to today. I want to keep this session brief because a lot of this you can kind of research and dig into on your own. But again, I just want to offer a different spin on it. And so, a lot of our work really is based on solving root issues. Here at Sales Leverage, the root issues that revenue teams continue to struggle with. And I just find that sometimes these reports just don't go deep enough. They'll give you the what, they'll give you, what's happening, the current state, and again, some good data points, some good metrics, but they don't really dig deep enough into the why. So I'm going to give you some of that in this, I guess, monologue, if you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, these are challenges that teams continue to have, even when they are, presumed to have the best sales training, they have the best enablement methods, they have best-in-class sales technology. But unfortunately, these teams are still struggling with like conversion, sales velocity. And I'm talking like our focus B2B, but we're not looking at the entire B2B landscape. That's not where we play. That's not where we add value. We are more of a upper mid-market resource, enterprise resource for sure. So some of the data from these reports, I think some of it's like focused on deal sizes of 1,000 to 5,000 in ACV or whatever. And I mean, we're more focused on the $20,000 plus realm, the six-figure deals, of course, but it's a very different approach when you are trying to sell deals that size versus something that's more, I would consider more transactional. Anything to me below 10,000 in ARR is a transactional deal in my estimation. Okay. One thing I will say is that it's really important to see beneath the surface layers of this data, because at the end of the day, you cannot solve what you cannot see, and you can't fundamentally change what you're not willing to confront. And so I truly believe one of the pathways to progressive change and controlling more of the controllables, right, is you have to be willing as a leader to go beyond the ego, right? You have to be willing to go beyond politics, and you have to be able to go beyond even some of your perceived sunken costs that you've already invested in people, process, and technology, right? I find that some of our executives feel like, well, if I'm paying a VP of sales or, like a mid to senior level sales leader, revenue leader, three, four, $500,000, they should be able to fix my issues. And that is definitely not the case, right? But I'll say leaders that are willing to look past these hidden barriers of ego, politics, and sunken costs, they're going to position themselves for success in the coming years, right? The ones that don't, more than likely will face some self-inflicted roadblocks to their success. I just want to let you know, I want to really emphasize you must you got to stay focused on the metrics that matter and not vanity metrics. And so that's because that's what we see a lot of times is we get caught up in the vanity metrics, and that's not where the solution lies. I mean, in my work, I think in the last year, like I was literally told by the CEO of a pretty large global tech firm. This company was a Series E unicorn tech firm. This CEO told me that I was able to reveal things about his global business that he's been struggling to see for the last 5 years. He couldn't see it in 5 years. And we did that in less than 90 days, right? We were able to shine a light on some of his root issues and root challenges and quantify that as well, right? This is not some flex, right? This is just a fact. This is what happened. The company, again, they had a massive revenue org across North America, EMEA. You're talking close to 200 reps or more. So maybe that's not massive, but it's a good size, right? So, not a small org by any stretch of the imagination. So, and really, I was able to uncover about 80% inefficiency gaps in various business units, right, across multiple units within that revenue org. But it was massive. So anyway, like I said, this is something that needs to be done. Some of the areas I'm going to talk about from the HubSpot report that I thought were really interesting. So number one, the challenges and opportunities in the 2024 sales landscape. This is a big one. The evolution from sales rep to sales consultant. I really want to spend some time there because that's what I have been teaching for years are the skills and the behavioral attributes of a consultant versus the typical sales rep. Another area that I found interesting, the informed buyer. The informed buyer that creates a very different dynamic in our sales process today. So the informed buyer and self-service. There's some other stuff about how teams are using AI, the impact of tighter budgets. That's one of those uncontrollable things. The importance of maintaining relationships. A lot of these things, man. It's funny how I've actually talked about this on previous podcasts. If you go listen to earlier episodes of this podcast, you'll hear me go really deep in these areas with other mid-level to senior leaders, even individual contributors. We're talking about this stuff. So, I mean, it's definitely a priority. And then some of the things from Gartner, we'll jump in. Let's start with like technology. Let's look at tech first. So I participate in Gartner webinars. They're one of our partners that we enjoy their insights and their research. So they did I think it was a sample size of around 500 global B2B sellers. And we were just talking about, or they were talking about technology hype versus technology impact. And so I know you can't see this graphic. I don't even know if I can share this graphic. There may be some copyright laws or something, but I'm just sharing the information that they put out here, the research they've done, and just giving you my opinion, right? So some stuff I won't be able to, show you. I'll just kind of speak to, and hopefully you garner some value from it, right? So one of the first graphics, it is what the percentage of sellers who feel overwhelmed by tech that's required to do their job. 49% of the entire sample said yes, they are overwhelmed by the tech required to do their job. 46% say no, we're good, no issue there, and then 5% appear to be neutral. Okay, so that's really interesting. It's like almost split down the middle, but again, the small majority say they feel overwhelmed by tech. And that's something that I'm seeing consistently with the clients that we work with as well. Second graphic is the ones that it compares reps that are not overwhelmed by the tech and then versus ones that are overwhelmed by the tech. It's saying, what's the likelihood of them attaining their quota based on these two types of sellers? So you got your non-overwhelmed and your overwhelmed. It's saying the ones that are not overwhelmed are 43% more likely to attain quota than the ones that are not overwhelmed. But again, remember, there's more that are overwhelmed that are not. So it's something to think about. Like if we could shift that view to people being less overwhelmed, you would actually hit your number. So it's like, is tech really, the question that Gartner was asking, is tech really making things more productive? Are they making teams more productive? No, not in a lot of cases. In most cases, it's actually not. It's creating more noise. And so that's why I say it's so important, because there's a lot of great tech tools out here, but you have to be mindful to not misappropriate that tech. What we see a lot of is, hey, you get a new head of sales or whatever in a company, new startup, they're familiar with a certain type of technology and they want to utilize that in their new company, right? It's a comfort thing. But sometimes that solution is not the best fit for the new company, right? It could be a different use case, right? And that's one of the issues. I'll say this, you must create the right sales workflow before you attempt to automate and scale. Because if you don't, you're going to automate and scale a bad or inefficient workflow. Basically, you're going to do the wrong things or less than optimal things faster. Speed and efficiency are not the same. I'm going to get into that later on in this talk, in this review. But speed does not always equate to efficiency. However, efficiency does pretty much all the time map to speed. You can do things faster if you're efficient. But sometimes we do things faster and there's still massive efficiency gaps, and it increases our costs sometimes. So incorporating technology, we sometimes incorporate technology assuming the tech will create a good workflow for your specific use case. Again, it's not true, right? When people are overwhelmed, it creates a level of burnout, right? You create challenges from both a monetary and cultural perspective. So when I say culture, I'm talking about the disengagement and burnout of your team. And that can have massive negative impact from a short-term performance perspective. And it also can have some negative impact around employee retention or attrition, right? If you're churning through a lot of employees, which seems to be happening quite a bit in the sales and rev ops space. One of the reasons, the people get let go because they're not hitting their numbers, but is it due to a talent issue? Is it due to a skill issue? Is it due to an enablement issue, right? Is it due to lack of leadership? There are a lot of different layers we have to kind of unpack and understand before we can make assumptions. And we just don't like to make too many assumptions here, right? So when it comes to tech, I would say rather than doing some type of poll or survey or only focusing on usage rates, which are typically saturated with subjectivity, right? You're talking about, you're right, leaders need to start conducting what I call a sales efficiency analysis, right? Not just, again, based on usage and things like that. A tech efficiency analysis is more of an objective and data focused measure of actual productivity and conversion outcomes. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Instead of doing a poll or survey or focusing on usage rates, if you want to improve your tech ROI, you should be doing a technology efficiency analysis, right? Because it focuses on the actual productivity, not volume, not busy work, and it focuses on conversion, right? And not vanity metrics, right? Productivity and conversion is what gets you closer to revenue, right? Usage data is what I call a busyness metric, right? Just talking about usage. Oh, we've got 1,000 users and they're active every day on the tool, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. But it still doesn't tell you how well the usage is converting to the outcome that you desire, right? Literally, I was recently classified a power user of one of the tools that I currently leverage for data enrichment and prospect outreach. They sent me this email, oh, congratulations, you've unlocked whatever, and you're a power user. It's based on usage, but honestly, my conversion sucked. So I'm going to be very honest with you. And it's something that I'm working through. Like with outreach, there's no cookie cutter framework for outreach. There's things that, yeah, universally work, but then there's things that are a little bit nuanced that you have to tweak. Timing matters. There's a lot of things that go into it, right? But anyway, my point is being a power user just means that you're using it a lot. Your adoption is high, right? That's a good thing. But think about it, usage metrics, that really only satisfies the vendor's objectives, right? It makes the vendor look good because they're like, oh man, we've got 10,000 users and usage rates are high and so on and so forth. And again, it's a great indicator of adoption, but it's not an indicator of productivity or effectiveness when using that tool. Because if you purchased a tool to book more meetings, you're doing more outreach, your volume has increased, but your meeting rates have not. They're flat. Then is the tool really helping, right? Is it really about the tool, or is it something flawed in the messaging? Is there something flawed in the targeting? Something else is broken, right? So I just want you to think about that. And again, from what we see, most revenue orgs are not looking at their tech spend in this way. They're only, again, they're focusing on usage, usage, usage. That's only part of the story, right? We've actually been able to identify the companies that we've done tech efficiency analysis for. We've identified 30 to 60% tech overspend, right? Just think about it this way. If you are able to identify and manage that area more effectively, how would that affect your balance sheet? And again, I'm talking to my CEOs, I'm talking to my CFOs, right? My C-level execs, right? If you're able to manage your tech spend and your tech efficiency better, how would it affect your balance sheet? How would it affect your operating expense? How would it affect your cost of customer acquisition? And how would it affect your profitability? Again, this is just one area. One area is tech, but I wanted to start off with that because the landscape is so saturated with an abundance of tech. And I'm not saying the tech is bad. I'm saying how it's being used is less than optimal. In some cases, it is bad. Like I've seen, bad use cases. Like it's not being used consistently, not improperly. Like there's things broken. But in other cases, it's not. It's just you got the wrong tech for the wrong use case, and there's too much redundancy in your technology too, right? That's another area of overspend is tech redundancy, and that's a problem. So anyway, all right. So data set two, we talked about tech. Now I want to get into some of the HubSpot data. The HubSpot 2024 sales trend report. That's what we want to talk about. All right, so first graphic, challenges and opportunities in the 2024 sales landscape. Again, I don't think I saw the sample size of this, but I'm assuming it's pretty large if HubSpot's doing it. They do really good research here. But the top 5 challenges. Challenge number 1, inflation. They have that at 25% of the total, I guess the total issue scope or whatever. So inflation is number 1. Standing out from competition is number 2. Lack of high quality leads was number 3 at about what looks like 17%. Reaching decision makers is about 16%. And then longer deal cycles, same thing, 16%, right? It says here, many are dealing with budget constraints and they're being asked to do more with less in terms of resources and teammates. This has been over the last decade. This is nothing new, guys. Nothing new. The only thing I would say from this list that is kind of an uncontrollable variable is inflation. You really can't do a lot about inflation, right? You have to be more reactive when it comes to things like inflation. That's not something you can really impact all that much. But standing out from the competition, that's a big one, right? Standing out from competition is a little bit different than what we think. This is something that is a controllable variable through something called quantitative value mapping. I'm going to look at, there's another graphic below I'm going to reference, but I just want to kind of give you my take on these 5 areas. So standing out from competition is controllable through quantitative value mapping. I'll explain that later. Number 3, the lack of quality leads. That is actually another controllable area. It's controllable through something called persona value mapping, right? Reaching decision makers, another controllable variable through persona value mapping, focused on, however, so when you're talking about decision makers are your C-level, right? Your C-level execs. I coach a lot of reps right now, one-to-one, that are having a really hard time bridging that value gap. They're having a hard time bridging the gap between the technical, tactical user, the operations person, and mapping that to what an executive cares about, which is more strategic and economic value metrics, right? Like revenue, like brand expansion, like mitigating risk, things like that. You have to be able to connect those dots. So reaching a decision maker becomes much easier when you can articulate value in their language and it's quantifiable. All this stuff has to be measured, has to be quantifiable. So persona value mapping focuses on understanding who your audience is, what outcomes they're looking for, and how they measure success. That's a level that I have seen no sales team very good at just yet. I've seen some do really well with the persona, just the persona piece, like, oh, they a head of R&D cares about these 5 things, or a head of manufacturing cares about these 3 things. That's good. That's the first step. Now, the second step is it's put a metric to it. How do they measure success? The same way with sales, right? Sales and revenue, or we measure success, right? We quantitatively measure success. Every team, just about in every business, I don't care whether it's, for profit, nonprofit, there is a way to quantify their outcomes, their desired outcomes. There's a way to quantify the delta between those 2 outcomes. Anytime you hear somebody say, I want to do XYZ faster, they want to do XYZ better, they want more of ABC, whatever it is, you hear words like that, those are triggers. That means there is a delta between one state versus the other. You can't say, I want to do something better than how I'm doing it today if you haven't measured how you're doing it today. It's like me saying, hey, I want to lose weight. Okay, well, how much weight? And if I can't determine that if I don't know how much I weigh today, right? If I don't know how much I weigh today, then how can I tell if I'm losing weight? Maybe in the mirror I can see, oh, I'm getting slim, but no, actually that's not true either. I've maintained the same weight. I've lost inches, right? My body composition has changed over time, but my weight remained the same. So again, anyway, I didn't mean to get into, health and wellness or anything like that, but I'm just saying just about everything is quantifiable. When you say quantifiable or when you say measurable, their mind for some reason automatically goes to ROI. Doesn't necessarily have to be ROI, but there are metrics that lead to that ROI. And so just because you haven't figured out how to measure a thing doesn't mean it can't be measured. That just means you don't understand how to measure it. And I've had this conversation with engineers, and when I explain it this way, they're like, okay, we get it. We understand it now. It's just that their thinking sometimes of what is measurable is too limited. And that's what I see with a lot of very smart teams, but they just don't understand the quantification of process, the quantification of value very well. They haven't been trained to think that way. The last one, longer deal cycles. This is somewhat controllable, but that's going to be, again, through quantitative and persona value mapping, right? The deal cycle, yeah, we can't totally control it, but you've got more control than what you think, right? We hit roadblocks in our deal cycles because, yeah, sometimes it is a budget issue, but more times than not, sales teams have not shown the personas, not just one persona, but all the personas that influence their deal. They haven't proven measurable, tangible value. That's what's missing. Value, this is universal. Value means it's something that people are willing to pay for and invest in. Whatever you find valuable, and this is for every human being on the planet, they will invest time, energy, resource, capital in what they value. I don't care if it's business, I don't care if it's personal, leisure, whatever it is. They are going to invest in what they care about. Sales reps need to do a better job of unpacking that. They make way too many assumptions on what value is. They assume, like, you'll have enablement. I've seen enablement teams that they're just very product focused. And we're going to get into some of that data here in just a second, thinking the product, the features, the benefits, and all that stuff. That's well, the features, maybe not, but the benefits, like the outcome of the product, of course, that is value. But again, we still have to dig much, much deeper. This was really interesting. So for all of you folks out there that claim the PLG, the product-led growth strategy, is the way to go, yeah, it's the way to go if you want to have little to no control over your deal, right? This graphic here just says the number of prospects that do their own research before speaking to a rep. 96% have done their own research, right? This is where they reference AI. Today, with AI making it so quick and easy to compare tools, to learn about their features. See, AI makes that easy, so they don't need you for that. They don't need you for the feature piece, right? The feature dump, and to compare pricing options. So look at that. That's value that's been taken away from the sales rep. Sales rep, that used to be a thing that, sales reps and sales engineers focused on. And I mean, I'm not saying the demo is not valuable, but not as much as you think. Yeah, it says sales reps need to behave more like consultants and partners than vendors. Okay, listen to that. Sales reps need to behave more like consultants and partners than vendors. We got to get out of the vendor mentality. We got to get out of the vendor behavior, right? So when we get into the evolution from sales rep to consultant, right? It says here, relationship building and connection are more important than ever. Sales reps used to be able to close deals by simply walking their prospects through the many features and benefits of their product, but today the role of a sales rep is changing. Exactly. That's what I mean. The PLG is not the play, right? We build relationships. If we're talking about relationship building, we build relationships by delivering and building persona specific value. Hear that again. It has to be persona specific value. When a prospect is talking to a rep, it's because they've already moved past the phase where they want to learn the basics about the tool. So knowing that, like, why are reps still focusing on the basics of the tool, right? The person doing the research, they want to know how the tool will benefit them in their environment, their use case specifically, right? This basically means that, sales calls they need to get deeper, and they need to be much more personalized, right? And prioritize connecting person to person, right? Expert to expert. That's why persona value mapping is critical, right? True consultants, this is what I always tell my teams. A true consultant has the ability to show a prospect value that they fail to see on their own. That's what a true consultant can do, right? If I'm a consultant, I have to be able to show you, my prospect slash customer, something you cannot see on your own. I have to show you a different lens, a different perspective. I need to give you a deeper dive, sometimes even into your own data. We do this all the time, right? If a prospect can find value without you, then why do they need you? If they can research, if it's something that they can research on their own, using Google, using AI, using whatever, if they can do it on their own, your value diminishes in that area. So you got to find a way to offer new value, and that's what a consultant does. There's an area here that talks about accelerating revenue with smarter sales tools. Here we're going back to the tools again, right? But a lot of these tools are like top of funnel focused, right? Most of the tools that claim to accelerate deal velocity and create efficiency are actually top of funnel focused, and speed again is not always an indicator of efficiency, right? And they're talking about, we've got the AI tools that generate emails and sequences and campaigns and so on and so forth. They can A/B test. They can write some of your emails. Okay, that's cool. That's busy work, right? But what it's not doing is tracking, or it tracks conversion, but it's not telling you why your deals aren't converting. That's the missing piece. So yeah, it's telling you you sent X number of emails and you got X number of meetings or X number of responses or whatever. That's cool. It is telling you conversion, but it's not telling you why you're not converting, right? This is another missing analysis, I think, in this space, right? There's a sales efficiency analysis, that can tell you like how well you're executing some of these things, right? Any deal management and forecasting tool that doesn't have the ability to ingest and evaluate customer value metrics based again on the value of that specific persona is more than likely flawed, right? Because there's tools out there that do. There's I guess there's a link here that talks about HubSpot Sales Hub and AI tools can accelerate revenue growth with new intelligent deal management tools like deal inspection, AI forecasting, deal journey analytics, lead funnel reports, so on and so forth. But again, if they don't know what the customer value metrics are, the specific customer value metrics, it's still a guess. It's still generic. There's too much subjectivity there. It has to be value metrics associated with that persona. You have to track that. If your tool doesn't give you the ability to do that, then again, it's flawed, right? Your tools have to be able to map, again, your tactical value to strategic economic value, right? That's going to be super, super important. Let's go to this next section. Oh, this is really cool where it talks about sales orgs keeping a focus on efficiency. Now, this is what I want to kind of unpack. Okay, in 2023, sales leaders were also interested in making the sales process more efficient, which makes sense as many teams have been asked to stretch their resources after an economically challenging year. Of course, we know that. However, the proliferation of AI tools will only make it easier to increase efficiency and work faster in 2024. I hear what they're saying, but it sounds like they're using these terms interchangeably, right? Efficiency and work faster. The reason I say this is because of the next graphic. So you can't see this, but it says AI tools are making it easier for reps to automate the repetitive parts of their job, saving them 2 hours a day. Okay, you're saving them some admin time. It's saving it. But again, you're saving them time because you could do it faster, but are you doing it better? That's the question, right? They're saving them 1 hour a day spent on administrative tasks. Yeah, okay, so 2 hours a day is, I guess, the aggregate of what they're saying. So I'll say it like this. Speed and efficiency can somewhat be related. They're like first cousins, but they are not the same. Speed relates to how fast or the velocity of action, okay? Hear that. Speed relates to the velocity of action. Efficiency relates to the quality and or the reduction or elimination of wasted effort. So efficiency relates to quality, and it also relates to the reduction or elimination of wasted effort. So you got to be able to identify those, right, with your AI tool, right? What effort is absolutely necessary? What effort is or the efforts that are nice to have versus must have? That's something that AI is just not, it's not there yet. And I don't know if it ever will be, because again, that's another very nuance based on industry, business type sector and things like that. So, it's not going to be easy. But again, just know the differences in efficiency and speed. Efficiency maps to speed, but speed doesn't always necessarily map to efficiency, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does, because it's the truth. Just because I can do something fast doesn't mean I'm doing it optimally. Doesn't mean the quality is there. It's just speed. It's just fast. You're saving me time in my busy work, but am I qualitatively effective? Something to think about. If you want to measure, and this is for all my revenue leaders out there, if you want to measure efficiency, you must use efficiency metrics, not velocity metrics. They're not the same. You got to use efficiency metrics. 3 efficiency metrics that I'm going to recommend for 2024 are these. You need to know your sales efficiency ratio. This can be quantified. You need to know your tech efficiency ratio. This can be objectively quantified. You need to know your marketing efficiency ratio. This can be objectively quantified. And all 3 of these can be measured across the entire org with very, very high precision. That I will guarantee you. Let's see more about standing out from the competition and adding value. So this is another piece that says, when sales reps first speak with a prospect, how many know about the company's services and competition? So when a first speaks to a prospect, how many of them already know about that sales rep's company? It says 88% already know about your company. So there's no point in, oh, about us. Let me tell you how great our company is and what we do. Like, they already know. So stop. It's low value. Or at least you need to ask the question, right? Just qualify it first. But most companies, before they take a call with you, they know who you are. They've already done their research. 84% know how the products and services compete with others. So they already know your product and they know how you stack up from a feature and benefits perspective. And then 83% know about products and services just in general. So that's a high percentage of people that already know you before they talk to you, right? Based on that graphic, sellers need to spend less time sharing information. They need to spend less time sharing information that the prospect can already find on their own. They need to spend time on things that the prospect cannot find, right? They need to spend more time discussing the problems that the prospect is dealing with or the outcomes they desire to achieve and how your solution maps to those specific value areas, right? Problem-centric selling, value-centric selling. These are not new terms. You guys have all heard this stuff, but we're still not disciplined around it. You have to know your customers' problem areas. You can't come and just offer basic information because it's not going to add any value, especially when you may have one shot at that conversation, right? One of the secret gems to uncovering unique prospect value is through a process called workflow mapping. Workflow mapping is the process that identifies the measurable impact of the current state of the prospect's business and helps all parties align on why change is necessary. You would be surprised how many sales teams I've worked with that have no clue what their customers' business processes are. They have no clue what their customers' workflows are. Like, how do they do what they do today? How can you claim as a vendor or a salesperson, how can you claim to improve anything the customer is doing if you don't know what they're doing? If you haven't mapped it, if you haven't seen it, if you don't understand it, you have to understand the current workflow. And every business has processes. You got to understand that there's a process to everything. Now, it may not be documented, it may not be formal, but there is a process. And every process has an associated cost to it. Every process can be measured because it requires time. The only way you can't measure a process if it doesn't take time, if it's instantaneous. And most of the stuff customers are dealing with and what we're trying to solve for, it's not instantaneous, right? There's some effort that goes into it. There's some resource that goes into it, and they are all measurable, okay? So if you want to start uncovering like different and much bigger opportunity cost that will justify the investment in whatever solution or service you're selling. We've done this on both sides. I don't care if it's a product, it's a service, whatever it is. If you want to start selling bigger ticket items and having more control and leverage over those deals and those negotiations, you have to be able to uncover and unpack the opportunity cost associated with their current workflow, how they're doing business today. What does it cost them not to change? Because sales, anytime you're selling something, typically there's a change that happens, right? You're asking a customer to abandon their current process and adopt a new process using your product, solution, or service. They got to have a reason to do that, right? The delta between the current state and future state is the most critical customer value metric. Hopefully that makes sense. The delta between the current state of their business and the future state, whatever you're proposing them, right, is the most critical value metric. If you're selling today and you can't show them a measurable difference in what they're doing today and a net positive gain of how you're recommending they do it, they're not going to buy, or they're going to be slow to buy, or they're going to talk you down to a price that they can understand or they feel like your solution is worth, right? The delta of what they know, right? And that's why I say you have to be a sales consultant and show them something they can't see on their own. So if you have tech tools and again, you're selling to larger clients, 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, a million plus, if you can't show them measurable net positive impact, you're leaving it on the customer. And they're probably going to have you discount 20, 30, 50, sometimes even 80%. I've seen it because there's value misalignment there, right? Humans inherently do not like change. And I think you guys know that. I mean, if you just look at yourself, right? We don't like change. Therefore, if I'm going to make a change, the result of that change must be tangible and not merely conceptual. I've seen very senior salespeople still selling concept and not tangible metrics, tangible improvements, right? If you want to convince and influence an executive, that impact better be tangible. They better be able to see it because they got to make decisions, big decisions, based on broader business impact. If you want to get their attention, you got to show them that. You can't show, oh, we're going to save you 2 hours a day. And unless 2 hours a day means $500,000, they don't care. You got to dig deeper. And one key to getting deeper and building a stronger business case is through quantitative workflow mapping. Learn to map your customer's workflow. Learn to extract the cost associated with that workflow at every single stage. You will sell so much more effectively that way. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I'm going to put the links to these studies probably in the description or in the comments area if you want to dig deeper into the research. Totally up to you. I just wanted to highlight those 4 or 5 areas that I thought were the most pressing. Wasn't able to tackle the insights from Sales Insights Lab in this session, but I'll circle back on that because they had a large sample size, like 23,000 sellers, global sellers. So I'm really interested in talking more about that and unpacking that. But anyway, hopefully you found value here. Thank you guys for tuning in and helping us take the next step toward becoming the #1 revenue enablement podcast in the world. We are committed to simplifying and accelerating the pace of the complex sales process. Okay. So take a moment to like and subscribe so that you can receive alerts on future episodes. Also, follow us on our other platforms for transformative insights and tactics that will give you the leverage to win more deals and maximize your revenue while doing it. Okay, you can follow us on YouTube. It's SalesLeverage 365. All other platforms are pretty much SalesLeverage.ai. So you can just pull that up and you'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, or whatever it's called now. LinkedIn. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts. So we're everywhere. We're not hard to find. So just look for SalesLeverage.ai on any of those platforms, or look for Sales Leverage 365 on YouTube. That's our primary video platform. Okay. So I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving. To those of you that do celebrate it, for those that don't, I'm still going to send you vibes of success, peace, and blessings during this season. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.